Tejo stood in front of the mirror, fixing his uniform for the 5th time. His hands shook slightly. Today was the day humanity would meet the Valarian Empire for the first time. "You look fine," Nari said from across the room. She was checking her translation device, making sure every word would be perfect. "Stop worrying. Easy for you to say," Tejo replied. "You're not the one leading this meeting." The year was 2287. Humanity had finally reached the stars, only to discover they were late to the party. Dozens of alien species had been traveling between worlds for thousands of years. They had governments, trade systems, and complex relationships, and the most powerful of them all was the Valarian Empire. The Valarians controlled 70 star systems. Their technology was centuries ahead of Earth's. Their military could destroy entire planets. But they had reached out to humanity with friendship, not weapons. They wanted to talk, to trade, to build bridges between their worlds. Tejo was chosen to represent Earth because of his work with alien life. He had studied biology his whole life, learning about creatures from different worlds. He was curious where others felt fear. He asked questions where others ran away. At least that was what his file said. The truth was simpler. Tejo was terrified. The shuttle brought them to the Valarian flagship, a massive ship called the Eternal Twilight. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. The metal seemed to shift colors as they approached, like oil on water under sunlight. "Remember," Nari whispered as they walked through the corridors, "every species in the galaxy thinks the Valarians are beautiful. They write poems about their queen. Don't mess this up." "Thanks for the pressure," Tejo muttered. The throne room doors opened, and Tejo's breath caught in his throat. The room was huge, with walls that seemed to glow from within. Dozens of aliens stood around the edges, representatives from different worlds. They all looked different, strange, and wonderful, but Tejo barely noticed them. His eyes were locked on the queen. Queen Lysara sat on a throne made of crystal. Her body was covered in a hard shell that shimmered with light. The shell was segmented like an insect's body, and patterns of blue and green light moved across it like waves. She had 6 limbs, each ending in delicate claws. Her head was angular, with large compound eyes that reflected the room's light like mirrors. When she moved, her mandibles clicked softly. To every other species in the room, she was the most beautiful thing they had ever seen. Ancient texts from 20 different worlds described Valarian royalty as living art and the perfect form. To Tejo, every instinct in his body screamed one word: spider, his monkey brain. The ancient part that kept his ancestors alive on Earth's plains saw those compound eyes and those segmented limbs and shouted danger. It remembered every spider that had crawled across his childhood bedroom ceiling. It remembered every horror movie with giant insects. It remembered millennia of evolution that taught humans to fear creatures that looked like this. But Tejo was professional. He had trained for this moment. He walked forward, bowed at exactly the right depth, and spoke the words he had practiced 100 times. "Your Majesty, on behalf of Earth and all humanity, we thank you for this meeting. We come in friendship and hope." His voice didn't shake. His face stayed calm. He even smiled at the right moments. But Queen Lysara was not human. Her species could read things humans couldn't see. She sensed the chemicals his body released when he was afraid. She saw the tiny tension in his muscles, the slight wideness of his eyes. She noticed the half-second pause before he looked directly at her. The meeting continued for 2 hours. They discussed trade, technology sharing, and cultural exchange. Tejo answered questions about Earth. He showed images of human cities, human art, human history. The other aliens seemed fascinated. They asked good questions. They seemed genuinely interested in humanity. But through it all, Tejo felt Queen Lysara's eyes on him. Those huge, multifaceted eyes that saw too much. When the meeting ended, everyone seemed pleased. Nari was excited, talking quickly about how well it had gone. The other human diplomats congratulated Tejo. Even the alien representatives seemed impressed with humanity's presentation. Only Tejo noticed the Queen's silence. That night, back in their quarters on the space station, Tejo couldn't sleep. He kept seeing those eyes, those mandibles, the way her shell caught the light. "You did great," Nari said when she found him staring out the window at the stars. Everyone loved it. "The Valarians want to meet again tomorrow." "Did you see her face?" Tejo asked. "When I was talking?" "She doesn't have a face like us, Tejo. You can't read their expressions the same way. I know. But something felt wrong. Nari sat down beside him. You're overthinking this. You were perfect. Professional, respectful, interested. What more could they want? Tejo didn't answer. He didn't know how to explain the feeling. That moment when their eyes met. That sense that she had seen right through his careful mask and found something disappointing underneath. The next day brought a surprise. A message arrived from the eternal twilight. But it wasn't about trade agreements or technology sharing. It was a personal invitation. Queen Lysara wanted to meet with Tejo alone. That's unusual, Hyun said. He was their security officer, and he didn't like the idea. Queens don't meet with junior diplomats privately. It breaks protocol. We can't refuse, Nari pointed out. That would be insulting. I'll go, Tejo said. His stomach felt heavy, but there was no other choice. We'll be right outside, Hyun promised. Any sign of trouble and we're coming in. Tejo nodded. He put on his uniform again, checked his appearance, and tried to calm his racing heart. The shuttle ride to the eternal twilight felt too short. The walk to the Queen's private chambers felt like a dream. The guards outside were huge, their shells darker and thicker than the Queen's. They watched Tejo with expressionless eyes as the doors opened. The chamber was smaller than the throne room, but somehow more intimidating. The walls glowed with soft light. Strange plants grew in corners, their leaves like colored glass, and in the center, standing instead of sitting, was Queen Lysara. Ambassador Tejo, she said. Her voice came from a translator device, smooth and clear. Thank you for coming, Your Majesty. Tejo bowed again. I'm honored. She moved closer, and Tejo fought the urge to step back. She circled him slowly, her antennae moving, tasting the air, reading him in ways he couldn't understand. I wanted to ask you something, she said finally. Something I cannot ask in front of the others. Of course, Your Majesty, anything. She stopped in front of him. The light patterns on her shell shifted to colors his translator couldn't name. Her voice, when she spoke again, was quieter. Almost uncertain. Do you think I'm ugly, human? The question hit Tejo like a physical blow. For a moment, he couldn't process it. The most powerful being in 70 star systems, ruler of billions, was asking him if he found her attractive, and then, despite everything, despite the weight of diplomatic relations and the future of humanity, Tejo laughed. It burst out of him before he could stop it. Not a cruel laugh, but one of pure surprise and relief. The tension that had been building in him since yesterday suddenly released all at once. He laughed because the question was so unexpected, so honest, so startlingly vulnerable from someone who commanded fleets of warships. Queen Lysara froze. Her bioluminescence shifted rapidly through colors. Her guards outside shifted, sensing her distress. Tejo realized his mistake too late. His laughter died in his throat. Your Majesty, Tejo saw the hurt in her shifting colors. Even without understanding Valarian expressions, he knew he had made a terrible mistake. The guards were moving toward the door. In seconds, they would burst in, and this whole diplomatic mission would end in disaster. Wait, Tejo said quickly, raising his hands. Please, Your Majesty, let me explain. I wasn't laughing at you. Queen Lysara stood perfectly still. The light patterns on her shell moved faster now, like storm clouds racing across her body. Then what amused you so much about my question? Nothing amused me, Tejo said. He took a deep breath. This was it. The moment that would either save everything or destroy it. I laughed because I was surprised and relieved. Your Majesty, can I ask you a question first? She tilted her head slightly. Speak. Why did you ask me that? Why does it matter what I think? Queen Lysara was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. For 3,000 cycles, every species that has seen my people has called us beautiful. It is written in their art, their poetry, their history. When they meet us, they respond with awe, with wonder, with admiration. She moved to the window, looking out at the stars. But when you looked at me yesterday, I saw something different. You controlled it well. You were polite and professional, but underneath I sensed fear, discomfort, and I have not been able to stop thinking about it since. Tejo felt a weight in his chest. She was right, of course. She had seen right through him. Your Majesty, I need to tell you about humans, about how we see the world. It's not something we talk about much because it makes us seem weak. But you deserve the truth. He walked to stand near her, though not too close. Through the window, he could see Earth in the distance, a small blue dot among the stars. Humans evolved on that planet, he began. We were not always smart or powerful. For millions of years, we were prey animals. Small creatures that had to survive in a world full of things that wanted to eat us. Queen Lysara turned to look at him, her antennae moving with interest. Our brains developed a system to keep us alive, Taiho continued. When we see certain shapes, certain movements, certain features, our brain immediately decides if something is safe or dangerous. It happens before we can think, before we can choose. He pulled up his datapad and showed her images from Earth. These are spiders, small creatures, most of them harmless, but humans fear them. Not because they're dangerous, but because of how they look. 8 legs, multiple eyes, the way they move. Our ancient ancestors learned to fear things that looked like this because some of them were poisonous. Queen Lysara looked at the images, then at her own limbs. Yes, Taiho said softly. When I look at you, my brain sees similarities. Your compound eyes, your segmented body, your mandibles. Everything in my evolutionary programming says predator, danger, run away. He showed her more images. Insects from Earth, centipedes, beetles, mantises. These are some of the things humans instinctively fear. Not because we choose to, but because we're programmed to. So you do find me frightening, Queen Lysara said. There was no anger in her voice now, just sadness. My ancient monkey brain does, yes, Taiho admitted. But that's not all I am. Humans are more than our instincts, that's the important part. He pulled up different images now. This is a butterfly, an insect, like those spiders. But humans find these beautiful. Why? Because the wings are colorful, because they move gently, because they don't trigger our danger response. More images appeared. This is a snake. Many humans fear it. This is a dolphin. Most humans love it. But both can be dangerous. Our fear isn't always logical. He showed her human faces now. Different people from different parts of Earth. Even among humans, beauty standards change. What one culture finds beautiful, another might not. What one person loves, another fears. Queen Lysara moved closer to the display, studying the images carefully. I laughed, Taiho said, because your question assumed that my opinion should matter. That there was an objective truth about your beauty. But beauty isn't universal, Your Majesty, it's personal. It's cultural. It's biological. He turned to face her directly, fighting his instincts to look away. You asked if I think you're ugly. The honest answer is that my brain doesn't have a proper category for you. You're alien in the most literal sense. My eyes weren't designed by evolution to see you, but that doesn't mean you lack beauty. It just means I can't perceive it the way others do. Yet you stayed, Queen Lysara said. Yesterday when we met. You could have sent someone else. You could have shown fear. But you controlled yourself. You were respectful. Professional. Because intelligence is stronger than instinct, Taiho said. That's what makes us human. We feel fear and we act anyway. We see something different, something our brain says is dangerous, and we choose curiosity instead of running away. He pulled up one final image. A human brain, with different sections highlighted. This part is ancient. It controls fear, hunger, basic survival. This part is newer. It controls thought, choice, reason. Every day, humans fight a war between these two parts. Sometimes the fear wins, but often, the choice wins. So when you look at me, Queen Lysara said slowly, you feel fear, but you choose to look anyway. Yes, that is courage. Taiho shook his head. It's just being human. Every human does this every day. We're afraid of heights, but we climb mountains. We're afraid of deep water, but we cross oceans. We're afraid of the unknown, but we explore it anyway. That's what brought us to space. Not fearlessness, just the choice to move forward despite fear. Queen Lysara was quiet for a long time. Her bioluminescence shifted through colors Taiho was starting to recognize. Blues and greens, which seemed to mean thinking. Soft purples, which might mean understanding. "I have ruled the Valerian Empire for 20 cycles," she said finally. "In that time, I have received praise from 1,000 different species. They have written songs about my beauty. They have created art inspired by my form, and I accepted it as truth, as fact." She looked at Taiho. "You are the first to tell me that their praise means nothing to you. And somehow that honesty is worth more than all their songs." "I didn't say it means nothing," Taiho corrected gently. "I said I can't see what they see, but I can learn. I can understand why they find you beautiful even if my eyes never will. Understanding doesn't require the same perception. It just requires the willingness to listen." "Tell me," Queen Lysara said, settling into a seated position that seemed more relaxed. "If you cannot see my physical beauty, what can you see?" Taiho thought carefully. "I can see your grace in how you move, your wisdom in your decisions, your kindness in choosing diplomacy over force. I can see your curiosity in asking me this question instead of being angry. Those are forms of beauty too, maybe deeper ones." "Beauty beyond sight," Queen Lysara said thoughtfully. "Beyond automatic sight," Taiho agreed. "Chosen sight, the kind that takes effort but reveals more truth." Queen Lysara's colors shifted to warm gold. "I think I understand now why you laughed. My question was based on a false premise. I assumed your eyes worked like everyone else's. I assumed there was a universal truth about beauty. And I laughed because I realized we were having two completely different conversations," Taiho said. "You were asking about objective truth, I was fighting subjective instinct. Your species is strange, Ambassador Taiho. We get that a lot." For the first time, Queen Lysara made a sound that Taiho's translator interpreted as amusement. "I think I like strange. The familiar becomes boring after 3,000 cycles." News traveled fast in the Valerian court. Within a day, every noble and advisor knew that Queen Lysara had spent 3 hours in private conversation with the human ambassador. Within a week, the content of that conversation had spread to other alien species on the station. Within a month, it had changed the galaxy. Taiho sat in a meeting room with Nari and several Earth officials on a video call. Jiwan, Earth's council representative, looked tired. She had been dealing with messages from alien governments for days. "Explain it to me one more time," Jiwan said, rubbing her temples. "You told the most powerful queen in the galaxy that she looks like a spider?" "I told her the truth about human perception," Taiho corrected. "She asked a direct question. I answered honestly." "And now the Grand Assembly wants humanity to present at their next meeting," Nari added, excitement in her voice. "Every major species will be there. They want to understand the human perspective." Jiwan looked skeptical. "Is this good or bad?" "I can't tell anymore." "It's unprecedented," Nari said. "The Grand Assembly hasn't invited a new species to present in over 200 years. Taiho received his official invitation 3 days later. He would speak to representatives from 47 different species about human psychology, evolution, and perception. He had 6 weeks to prepare. "I'm sending Minseo to help you," Jiwan said. "She's a psychologist, specializes in human behavior. If you're going to explain humanity to the galaxy, you need an expert." Minseo arrived 2 days later. She was older than Taiho, with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see through people. She reminded him of his favorite university professor. "I've read your report," she said immediately. "About your conversation with the Queen, it was brilliant." "It was honest," Taiho said, "same thing." Minseo pulled up a massive presentation on her datapad. "I've been working on this for years. How human psychology differs from what we've seen in other species. Nobody wanted to fund the research because it seemed obvious. Of course, different species think differently, but now everyone wants to know exactly how we're different." Over the next weeks, Taiho and Minseo worked 18-hour days. They built a presentation that explained human evolution, human brain structure, human culture, and human perception. Nari helped translate everything into forms that other species could understand. The day of the Grand Assembly arrived. Taiho stood backstage, more nervous than he had ever been. Minseo stood beside him, calm and confident. "Remember," she said, "they're not judging you. They're trying to understand there's a difference. The hall was enormous. Representatives from 47 species sat in specially designed seats that fit their different body types. Some breathed air, some breathed different gases. Some saw invisible light, others in infrared or ultraviolet. Some communicated through sound, others through smell or color. And all of them were watching Taiho. He took a deep breath and began. "My species is called human," he said. "We come from a planet called Earth. For most of our history, we thought we were alone in the universe. When we finally reached the stars and met you, we discovered something surprising. We don't see the galaxy the way you do." He showed images of Earth, forests, oceans, mountains, cities. "This is where we evolved. For millions of years, we were weak. We had no shells, no venom, no claws. We survived through intelligence and fear. Our brains learned to see danger everywhere." The presentation continued. He showed how human eyes worked, how human brains processed information, how human culture developed from survival needs. Minseo added details about psychology, about how humans made decisions, about how fear and reason fought in human minds. Then came the crucial part. "Other species have told us that Valerians are beautiful," Taiho said. "They've shown us the mathematics, the patterns, the ratios that make Valerian form aesthetically perfect. And we've studied these carefully. We understand them logically," he paused. "But when a human looks at a Valerian, our ancient brain sees a predator. We feel fear. This isn't a choice. It's automatic. It's evolutionary." A murmur went through the crowd. Taiho could see confusion, surprise, and in some cases, understanding. "This doesn't make us better or worse," he continued. "It makes us different. And we've discovered that difference matters more than we thought." Minseo took over, showing brain scans of humans looking at different aliens. Fear responses, curiosity responses, confusion responses. Each species triggered different reactions. "For millennia," Minseo explained, "humans thought beauty was universal. When we met other species and learned that you all share certain aesthetic standards, we assumed we were broken, that our perception was wrong." She smiled. "But we're not broken. We're just isolated by our evolution. We developed on a planet with no contact with the galactic community. Our standards evolved separately, and that makes us uniquely valuable." The presentation ended with a question. What if beauty isn't universal? What if every species sees the galaxy through a filter shaped by their unique evolution? What if there's no objective truth, only different perspectives? The hall erupted in discussion. Some species seemed excited, others disturbed. The crystalline Halu representative stood and spoke through her translator. "For cycles, my people have felt inadequate," she said. "We are not organic. We do not flow like water beings or shine like the Valerians. We are rigid crystal, sharp and cold. If what humans say is true, then beauty is not objective. Then perhaps we are not inadequate. We are simply different," an aquatic Dulari representative argued back. "But our entire culture is built on aesthetic harmony. We have laws about beauty, art about perfect forms. If there is no universal beauty, what does that mean for us?" A bird like Kesra spoke next. "I think the humans have given us a gift. They've shown us that difference is not deficiency. For too long, we've all tried to match certain standards. Maybe it's time to celebrate variety instead." The discussion continued for hours. Taiho and Minseo answered questions, explained concepts, showed more data. Some species understood immediately. Others struggled with the idea that their perception wasn't universal truth. Finally, Queen Lysara stood. The hall went silent. "The human ambassador told me something important," she said. "He told me that beauty without context is meaningless. That courage is choosing understanding over instinct. I have spent days considering his words." She looked around the hall at all the different species. "For 3,000 cycles, the Valerian Empire has been told we represent aesthetic perfection. We believed it. We built our identity on it. Then came humanity, a species that looks at us and sees danger, and instead of hating them for their honesty, I learned something profound. Her bioluminescence shifted to deep blue. They chose to see past their fear. They chose understanding over instinct. And that choice, I believe, is the most beautiful thing of all." She raised one claw in a formal gesture. "Therefore, I propose the perspective protocols, a new framework for understanding that acknowledges fundamental differences in perception between species. Let us learn from the humans. Let us accept that we all see the galaxy differently, and that all our perspectives have value." The vote was overwhelming. 45 species approved. Only 2 abstained, needing time to discuss with their governments. After the meeting, Taiho found himself surrounded by alien representatives. They wanted to talk, to learn, to understand. The Halu wanted to start a cultural exchange. The Kesra wanted human art for their museums. Even the skeptical Dulari wanted to study human psychology. Queen Lasara approached him last. "You have changed the galaxy, Ambassador Taiho." "I just told the truth," he said. "The truth has power," she replied. "I am offering you a permanent position. Ambassador to Valar. Someone must help build bridges between our vastly different perspectives." Taiho looked at Nari, who was grinning, at Minseo, who nodded encouragingly, at all the alien species waiting to talk to him. "I accept," he said. Back on Earth, Jiwan watched the broadcast of the Grand Assembly. She had been skeptical about Taiho's approach, worried that honesty would backfire. Instead, it had opened doors humanity never expected. She called an emergency council meeting. "We've spent years trying to fit into galactic society," she told the other representatives. "Trying to be like them, trying to hide our differences, but maybe it's time we stopped hiding. Maybe difference isn't weakness. Maybe it's our strength." The vote was close, but it passed. Earth would lean into its unique perspective. They would send artists, philosophers, scientists. They would share human culture, human thought, human ways of seeing, not to convert others, but to add humanity's voice to the galactic chorus. In his quarters that night, Taiho looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere else was Valar. Two worlds that saw each other completely differently, now choosing to build something together. His datapad chimed. A message from Queen Lasara. "Thank you for your honesty. I look forward to learning how humans see the stars." Taiho smiled and sent a reply. "Thank you for asking the question. I look forward to learning how Valarians see them too." 6 months had passed since the Grand Assembly. The Human Valarian Cultural Center now occupied 3 full levels of the neutral space station. Nari directed the center with the efficiency of someone who had found her life's purpose. "We have 17 new programs starting this month," she told Taiho as they walked through the busy corridors. "Art exchange, music collaboration, philosophy discussions. The waiting list for Valarian students wanting to study human culture is 3 years long." Taiho watched as a group of young Valarians gathered around a human musician. The musician played a guitar, and the Valarians' shells shifted through colors in response to the music. They were trying to understand sound-based art, something their species had never developed. They communicated primarily through light and chemical signals. "How's Sunwoo doing?" Taiho asked. "Come see for yourself." They walked to the art studio where Sunwoo stood in front of a massive sculpture. He was human, in his 30s, with paint-stained clothes and wild hair. Beside him stood a Valarian artisan named Krell. The sculpture was strange. From one angle, it looked chaotic, random pieces of metal and crystal thrown together. From another angle, the pieces aligned into harmonious patterns. It was designed to be beautiful to Valarians from one perspective and beautiful to humans from another. "It's called Two Truths," Sunwoo explained when he saw Taiho. "The idea is that both perspectives are valid. Neither is more correct than the other." Krell's translator device spoke for him. "Working with Sunwoo has changed how I see art. I always thought beauty was about finding the perfect form. But humans see beauty in imperfection, in chaos, in things that break rules. And I've learned that mathematics can be art," Sunwoo added, "that patterns and ratios can move people just as much as raw emotion." Taiho felt a warmth in his chest. This was what he had hoped for. Not humans becoming like Valarians or Valarians becoming like humans, but both species learning from each other's differences. His communicator buzzed. Queen Lasara wanted to see him. He found her in one of the observation decks looking out at the stars. She still made his instincts nervous, but now he also felt something else when he saw her. Familiarity, maybe even the beginning of friendship. "Ambassador," she greeted him. Her bioluminescence was a calm blue-green. "Your Majesty, you wanted to see me?" "I have a question," she said. "A personal one. Do you still fear me when you look at me?" Taiho considered lying, then remembered how their friendship had started with honesty. "Yes, that hasn't changed. My evolutionary response is still there. But you came when I called. You stand here beside me. You've spent hours teaching my people about human culture." "Yes. How?" Taiho thought about it. "I've learned to separate the feeling from the action. When I see you, my body reacts. My heart beats faster. My muscles tense. But my mind knows that reaction isn't truth. It's just old programming. So I acknowledge the feeling and choose to act anyway. That must be exhausting. Sometimes, Tejo admitted. But it's getting easier. I've been working with Minseo on it. She calls it exposure therapy. The more time I spend around Valerians, the less power the fear has. It's still there, but it's quieter now. Queen Lysara was silent for a moment. I have been studying human culture. Your art, your literature, your history. And I've noticed something. Humans often tell stories about heroes who face their fears. Is that important to your species? Very important, Tejo said. We don't admire people who feel no fear. We admire people who feel fear and act anyway. Courage without fear is just not feeling things. But courage despite fear is a choice, and choices matter to humans. I think I'm beginning to understand why your species has been so successful, Queen Lysara said. Despite being physically weak, despite having short lifespans, despite reaching space so late. You turn weakness into strength. You turn fear into motivation. We try, Tejo said. We fail a lot too. But you keep trying. That's the important part. A message came through on Tejo's communicator. It was from Earth. A young student named Hana had been selected for the student exchange program. She would be the first human to study on the Valerian homeworld. Good news? Queen Lysara asked, reading his expression. Very good, Tejo said. The next generation is coming. Young humans who will grow up knowing Valerians. Maybe for them, the fear won't be as strong. Do you think humans and Valerians can truly understand each other? Queen Lysara asked. When our perceptions are so different. Tejo turned to face her fully, meeting those compound eyes that still made his heart race. I think understanding doesn't mean seeing the same thing. It means accepting that the other person sees something different and respecting that. You'll never see through my eyes. I'll never see through yours. But we can describe what we see to each other. We can learn to appreciate both views. Perspective sharing instead of perspective matching. Exactly. Queen Lysara's colors shifted to warm gold. I have decided something. I want to visit Earth. I want to see your homeworld, understand where humans come from. But I have concerns. What concerns? If you, someone trained in xenobiology and diplomacy, still fear my appearance, what will average humans feel? I don't want to cause panic, Tejo smiled. Your Majesty, humans are very good at adapting. 6 months ago, we didn't know any aliens existed. Now we have cultural centers and exchange programs. Yes, some humans will be afraid. Some will be fascinated. Some will be curious, but will adapt. We always do. You have so much faith in your species. I have experience with them, Tejo corrected. Humans are messy, chaotic, and often irrational. But we're also incredibly flexible. We'll figure it out. Over the next months, preparations began for Queen Lysara's visit to Earth. It would be the first time a Valerian had set foot on the human homeworld. The media coverage was enormous. Minseo ran education campaigns helping humans understand Valerian psychology and culture. They're not bugs, she repeated constantly on news shows. That's human terminology. They're a sophisticated species with rich culture and deep emotions. Yes, they look like Earth insects. No, that doesn't define them. Jiwan worked with governments worldwide to prepare for the visit. Security was a nightmare. They had to protect the Queen, while also making sure she could actually meet regular humans. Nari coordinated the cultural aspects. What would the Queen see? What would represent humanity well? They decided on a mix. Ancient historical sites showing human history, modern cities showing human achievement, and natural parks showing Earth's beauty. Tejo worked directly with Queen Lysara on her schedule. They spent hours in planning meetings, and Tejo noticed something interesting. He was getting better at reading her colors. Blue meant thinking. Green meant contentment. Purple meant curiosity. Gold meant amusement. He was learning a new language without words. I'm nervous, Queen Lysara admitted one day. I've conquered worlds, negotiated with hostile species, survived assassination attempts. But I'm nervous about meeting average humans. Because it matters to you, Tejo said. When things matter, we get nervous. It means you care. What if they hate me? What if my presence causes problems between our peoples? Tejo thought about his own fear when he first met her. About the instinctive reaction he still sometimes felt. About how he had learned to look past it. Some will struggle, he said honestly. Some will need time. But humans are curious, Your Majesty. We're afraid of the unknown, but we're also drawn to it. Give them a chance. They might surprise you. The day of departure arrived. Queen Lysara would travel to Earth with a small group of advisors. Tejo would accompany them, along with Nari and Minseo. As their ship approached Earth, Tejo felt a strange mixture of emotions. He was home, but he was bringing something unprecedented. He was proud of his species for being open to this, but worried about how it would actually go. Queen Lysara stood beside him, looking at the blue planet growing larger in the window. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "So much water. So much life. It's home," Tejo said. "For better or worse. Are you ready for this?" she asked. Tejo smiled. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." "That's very human of me." Queen Lysara's colors shifted to gold. Amusement, understanding, and something else Tejo couldn't quite identify yet. Something warm. 1 year after their first meeting, Queen Lysara stood on Earth for the first time. The landing site was carefully chosen, a neutral meeting ground in Switzerland, away from major cities but accessible to media and observers. Tejo stood with the welcoming committee as the Valarian ship touched down. His heart was racing, but not from fear this time. This moment would define the future of human-Valarian relations for generations. The ship's door opened. Queen Lysara emerged, her shell catching the sunlight in ways that made her seem to glow. Behind her came her advisors, each impressive in their own way. The human crowd reacted exactly as Tejo had predicted. Some gasped. Some stepped back. Children pointed with wonder. A few people looked genuinely frightened. But most were simply curious, phones out, recording this historic moment. Jiwan stepped forward with the official greeting. She kept her voice steady and her face calm, though Tejo knew she was nervous. "Your Majesty, on behalf of Earth and all humanity, welcome to our world." Queen Lysara bowed in the human fashion, something her people had practiced. "Thank you, Representative Jiwan. It is an honor to stand on the world that created such a fascinating species." The formal ceremony continued for an hour. Speeches were made, gifts were exchanged, and treaties were signed. But Tejo could see that Queen Lysara was distracted. She kept looking at the humans in the crowd, studying their reactions, trying to understand them. Later, in a private moment, she spoke to Tejo. "They fear me. I can sense it." "Some do," Tejo admitted. "But look closer. See that woman in the blue dress? She's fascinated. That man with the camera? He's recording every detail because he thinks you're amazing. Those children? They're curious. Fear is just one reaction, Your Majesty. It's not the only one." Over the next week, Queen Lysara toured Earth. She saw the pyramids of Egypt, ancient structures that impressed even a species with thousands of years of civilization. She visited Tokyo, a city that never slept, full of lights and sounds and millions of humans living together. She stood in the Amazon rainforest surrounded by Earth's incredible biodiversity. But the most important visit was the last one, a small school in Seoul, where young Hana was preparing for her journey to the Valarian homeworld. The classroom was full of children, all around 10 years old. They had been learning about Valarians for months, studying their culture, their language, their way of seeing the world. When Queen Lysara entered, there was a moment of silence. The children stared wide-eyed. Then one little girl raised her hand. "Are you really a queen?" she asked in careful Valarian, learned from translation programs. Queen Lysara's colors shifted to warm purple. Delight. "Yes, I really am." "Can you glow in the dark?" another child asked. "Would you like to see?" The teacher dimmed the lights and Queen Lysara's bioluminescence became visible. Her shell lit up with patterns of blue, green, and gold. The children gasped with wonder, not fear. "You're like a walking rainbow," one boy exclaimed. For the next hour, Queen Lysara answered questions from children who saw her not as a frightening alien, but as something wonderfully new. They asked about her planet, her people, what she ate, if she had pets, what games Valarian children played. Tejo watched from the side of the room. This was the future. These children would grow up knowing that aliens were real, different and interesting. They wouldn't have the same ingrained fears as their parents. They would build a new kind of relationship with the galaxy. After the visit, Queen Lysara was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke to Tejo privately in their transport. The children weren't afraid. "No," Tejo agreed. "Fear is learned as much as it's instinctive. They've learned about you before they developed strong fear responses. You're normal to them. Different but normal. I envy them, Queen Lysara said. Growing up in a galaxy where difference is expected, where meeting an alien species is exciting instead of frightening. That's what we're building, Taiho said. Not for us, maybe. Our generations are already shaped. But for them, the final event was the most important, a joint ceremony celebrating the 1-year anniversary of first contact. It would be broadcast to both Earth and the Valerian Empire, watched by billions. The ceremony was held at the Cultural Center, now fully established and thriving. Sunwoo's sculpture Two Truths was unveiled as the centerpiece. Performances mixed human and Valerian art. Speakers from both species talked about what they had learned from each other. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. Queen Lysara and Taiho would give the closing speech together. They stood on stage, an odd pair. The insectoid queen with her glowing shell and compound eyes. The human man in his simple suit looking small beside her. Queen Lysara spoke first. 1 year ago, I asked Ambassador Taiho a question. I asked if he thought I was ugly. It seemed like a simple question. But his answer changed everything I thought I knew about beauty, about perception, about truth itself. She paused, letting her words settle. For thousands of cycles, the Valerian Empire believed we understood the galaxy. We thought beauty was mathematical, universal, objective. Then came humanity, a species whose evolution taught them to fear what others admire. And we learned something profound. Her colors shifted through the full spectrum. We learned that there is no universal truth, only different truths. That beauty is not what you are, but how you are seen. That the most beautiful thing is not perfection, but the courage to connect despite difference. Taiho took over. Your Majesty asked me a question. She asked if I thought she was ugly. I laughed because the question assumed that my answer mattered, that there was an objective truth about her appearance. He turned to look at her directly. The truth is more complex. When I first saw Queen Lysara, my ancient brain screamed danger. Every instinct I had told me to run. But I didn't run. I stayed, I talked, I listened, and I learned something important. He faced the cameras, knowing billions were watching. Beauty isn't what we feel automatically. It's what we choose to see. I still feel that instinctive response when I look at Queen Lysara. My heart still beats faster. My body still tenses. But now I also see something else. I see someone who questioned her own assumptions, someone who chose honesty over comfort, someone who risked her pride to ask a vulnerable question, someone who listened to an answer that challenged everything she believed. That's beauty. Not the physical form, but the person inside it. Queen Lysara's color shifted to deep gold. Ambassador Taiho has taught me that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to act despite fear. Every day he chooses to work beside me despite his instincts. That choice, renewed every day, is worth more than easy acceptance could ever be. And Queen Lysara has taught me, Taiho continued, that being seen differently doesn't mean being rejected, that you can be deeply respected by someone who will never find you beautiful in the conventional sense. That understanding is more valuable than agreement. They stood together in silence for a moment. Then Taiho did something unprecedented. He extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship. Queen Lysara looked at it, then carefully extended one claw to touch his palm. The gesture was clumsy, their body plans too different for it to be natural. But they held the position, human and Valerian, making contact despite everything that should have kept them apart. The crowd erupted in applause. Not just humans, but the Valerians present too, their shells flashing in their version of celebration. Later, standing on the observation deck one last time before Queen Lysara would return to her empire, they looked out at Earth and the stars beyond. Do you still fear me? Queen Lysara asked, echoing her question from a year ago. Taiho considered carefully. A little. But that fear is smaller now, and it's mixed with other things. Respect, curiosity, gratitude, maybe even friendship. Friendship despite fear. Friendship because of honesty, Taiho corrected. Fear is just biology. Friendship is a choice. Queen Lysara's colors shifted through several patterns before settling on soft blue-green. Peace. You humans have changed the galaxy, not through force or technology or wealth, but through your willingness to be afraid and connect anyway. We're still learning, Taiho said. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. No one is perfect. That's what makes the galaxy interesting. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Earth slowly rotate below. Two beings who saw the universe through completely different eyes, who would never truly perceive each other the way their own species did, but who had chosen to build something meaningful anyway. "I should return to my empire," Queen Lysara said finally. "But I will come back. Often. There is much more to learn." "And we'll be here," Taiho promised. "Still afraid sometimes. Still learning, but always choosing to try." As Queen Lysara's ship departed, Taiho stood with Nari, Minseo, and the others who had helped build this impossible bridge between worlds. "Do you think it will last?" Nari asked. "This partnership?" "Yes," Taiho said with certainty. "Because it's built on honesty, not illusion. We didn't pretend to understand each other perfectly. We didn't hide our fears or our differences. We acknowledged them and chose to connect anyway. That's real. And real things last." He looked up at the stars, at the thousands of worlds humans were just beginning to know. Other species saw those stars through their own evolutionary filters, their own cultural lenses.